On this spot, on March 14th, 2013, a serial transmogriphist was torn asunder by an unsanctioned vigilante known only as Larry the Squid. Described as a large purple cephalopod with the face of a man, Larry is said to deliver swift and brutal justice to those who threaten the innocent or helpless.
Okay, well, what we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be.
File number 292C. March 14th, 2013. Background.
The creature designated
Larry the Squid
is an extrajudicial enforcer who operates autonomously within the urban topography of East Vancouver, primarily engaging in nocturnal activity under conditions of minimal lunar illumination. His interventions exhibit a consistent pattern of rapid and forceful punitive measures directed at individuals whose actions are deemed detrimental to non-combatant populations, thereby functioning as an unsanctioned corrective agent within the localized socio-economic ecosystem. Born Lawrence Jiminy Goober in the fall of 1955, the man who would grow up to be a large, violent, purple cephalopod had a pretty normal childhood. He chased minnows in the creek out back and fireflies in the field next door. Real wholesome stuff. Not my scene. I'd rather be smoking reefers in some underground jazz club. But that's just after showing a proclivity towards the sciences at a young age. Lawrence became something of a local celebrity when his early attempts at self-sustainable cybernetics resulted in a giant robot crab monster which tore apart several blocks of the southwest section of the seawall and surrounding areas. And so it was that a fresh-faced young man, barely 16 years of age, was recruited by the local science consortium, described as a sublime initiative for abnormal macrospatial research. Brought in as a junior biologist assistant, before long Dr. Goober, or as he was known around the office, Big Fat Larry, was running the place. It's not known who gave him the nickname, but upon discovering it, Dr. Goober, in a strange act of ego defiance, demanded that it be used as his new title. It wasn't an ironic moniker either. The guy was 6'7" tall and weighed over 400 pounds, not including the heavy golden rings he wore on his fingers and the quart or so of cologne he applied fresh every morning. While technically the lead scientist of the SIAMR from 1984 to 2012, his reign was finally brought to an unexpected conclusion when he accidentally and unknowingly volunteered himself for a genetics experiment by drinking a cup of toxically psychedelic fruit punch, which had been designed to see if a DMT derivative substance could be used as a weapon against the children of hippies, who were themselves starting to become a bit... What was that accident, we have to wonder? Was the punch mislabeled? Was he sleep-deprived and thought it was Kool-Aid? Right now, it's a tad vague for something so consequential. The resulting trip was said to be a deeply introspective journey that gave Larry temporary access to his entire genetic code, allowing him to reshape his body at whim. Records indicate that he took on 32 different physical forms over the next 3 hours, at which point the drugs wore off and he found himself trapped forever in the last shape he'd taken. A 13-meter long squid, the deep purple color of an eggplant, with a large humanoid face growing out the side of it that looked sorta like the McDonald's character Mac at Night. Or was it Mac Tonight? I'm not sure, but I always found that guy creepy. Good pizzas, though. Wish they still had those. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, right, how Lawrence J. Goober became Big Fat Larry, and how Big Fat Larry became Larry the Squid. It's difficult to imagine what he went through when he first realized he was trapped in that form. The heavy weight of the too numerous limbs, the sharpness of his beak, the total lack of bones. He screamed for a while, a few days, and then he sucked it up, tendered his resignation, and got on with his life. Which I guess involved becoming a vigilante injustice fighter and a defender of the overlooked.
Incident of March 14th, 2013.
On Thursday, March 14th, 2013, Larry the Squid discovered and located the individual who had been abducting homeless folks and transforming them into spinning pyramids made of little glass cubes. Turns out it was some cop, but the guy had protection from Unit 313, because that's how the police do. They protect their own like any other gang. Larry the Squid didn't care about that. He tracked down that cop and did what you'd expect a giant squid to do if it were interested in violently subduing those who harm the innocent. Bits of the cop's bones were found smushed into the brickwork, and one witness said it looked like a food processor got into a fight with a bunch of squirrels. And sure, that cop was a serial transmogrifier, but that didn't keep the local constabulary from freaking out. A giant mutant squid tearing apart law officers on the city streets? That could not go unpunished. Local media suggested that people should panic, and over the next 24 hours the public responded with a resounding yes, followed by a lot of screaming, running around, flipping over cars which were then set ablaze, and some good old-fashioned looting. Of course, later all that damage was blamed on drunken hockey fans, as is common protocol for those sorts of events.
See also, June 15th, 2011.
There was a citywide manhunt for our pal Larry, but when that turned out to be a waste of time, they switched over to Squid Hunt, which also failed due to nobody really knowing how to hunt a squid on dry land throughout an urban environment.
Ramifications.
He's still out there. The cops say he's not real. The media claims he was a hoax invented by teenagers to trick adults into looking stupid. And if you ask the average person on the street of Vancouver if they've heard of
Larry the Squid,
they'll look at you like you're the crazy one. But if I'm so crazy, then how come every morning there's always fresh sucker marks all over the upper windows of East Vancouver? And what about that little girl who fell out into traffic and said she was saved by a handsome tentacle monster who snatched her up and set her on the sidewalk, safe as safe could be? There's other evidence. Some blurry photos, rumors, the rantings of derelicts, madmen, and drunks. And sometimes, every once in a while, you'll find some guy who got one of his arms ripped off, and it'll seem weird and random. But then you'll go looking into it, and it'll turn out that the guy was really some kind of creep, preying on folks in the area. Maybe a con artist, or some guy who likes hurting people, right? I don't know. Call me crazy, and I know you do, but sometimes it really seems like the evidence points towards the idea that there's a big purple squid out there with the face of a man looking for bad people to mess up. Maybe he's looking for redemption for all the terrible things he did as the head of the SIAMR, Or maybe he's just a violent monster, looking to earn his place in society by taking out other monsters, the kind that are still technically humans. All I'm saying is,
be nice.